Hello guys, welcome back to the channel, or if you're new to the series, I would suggest you check out part 1 and 2 first. We finally got inside the actual STEM environment properly, fully integrated into where everybody else is at, and we can explore the first real open world area. I hope you're looking forward into learning more about how the game engine works, and there was some very juicy discoveries I got from making this video, and it's been taking me a while to record, collaborate, and edit all of this, so without any further delay, let's go and entertain ourselves because I've been really looking forward to showing you guys this project. After first getting out of the house and getting inside the Union environment, you'll notice that the right side is actually blocked off by a section of wall and the left side is the only open path you can take. We are presented with a very narrow path here, but what is behind that wall? And you'll actually see that it's Union itself, and we could have just jumped over that wall and, skipped all of the bullshit earlier. But Sebastian thought it was wise to go around the wide and long path, and as you can see from here, we just basically do a giant U-turn. Now there is something interesting to notice about the area before the U-turn, and that is because if you don't initiate the cutscene, the environment has not fully rendered yet. The cutscene where you see O'Neill run into the safe house to secure himself, and as you guys can see, the environment is pretty interesting. We see 2D bushes, we see 2D bushes within 2D bushes, we see floating birds, and I killed these. I'm an absolutely terrible human being. There is also strange areas that haven't got fully rendered environments, but they do have partial rendering with some of the buildings, vehicles, bodies and objects rendering around the environment, but some of the vehicles such as the trains and areas are just completely non-existent. Now, just like the previous videos, there are some objects in this area that you can interact with, and a lot of these happen around the warehouse area. So if you remember, at the warehouse, you've got to go and activate a switch before you can get inside. Now when I went and activated this switch in this area, I actually didn't get any kind of confirmation that anything had changed, and you've got to remember this is before I've even entered the safe house for the first time to get into this area. So half of the environment isn't even rendering at this point. This basically broke my game, and you'll see this later on, but there was a little bit of a way to work around it. You may be wondering what the area looks like at the moment, but there's nothing particularly fascinating to show off, and the other big thing to point out is that without the cutscene, the environment hasn't changed yet, so none of the giant islands in the sky that are very interesting to see and explore have appeared, so we need to progress the cutscenes and the story so that we can explore all of that juicy content with the no-clip mod. After triggering the cutscene, this juicy little hole that we see here appears. Now you can actually go into the bottom of the hole, and the interesting thing that I actually find here is that you're able to freely move around the environment even with no clip disabled. This means the area has been properly nav meshed, but it is kind of cool that the nav meshing is applicable here, and it gives me hope that some of the environments that we go into, the ones that are far out, might also have the ability for you to move around on top of them. If we use the mods to get through the back of the church, you can go and confront the priest early without triggering the cutscene. Now I was a despicable little ass here and tried to knife him down or any other interactions that would kill him. Unfortunately, at this point in the game, you can't interact with his model in any capacity. Don't look at me like that, you would have tried it too. Anyway, I decided to trigger the cutscene after this because I wanted to see what happens, and surprisingly he just kind of disappeared. I don't know where he went, but that's kind of spooky. We're getting sidetracked here, so let's return to the safe house. We need to progress through that, because remember, I want to trigger the environment change, the one that happens after you properly leave, so that we can have all the world objects, like the rocks in the sky, and all the additional city pieces and environments of Union spawn, and then we can explore everything. After leaving the safe house, you'll notice something peculiar. If we go back to the area that we came from, all of it has sunken into the ground. Now this isn't the peculiar part, you may have noticed this of course in the single player story yourself. The peculiar part is, again, the entire new environment has been nav meshed. This means that you can actually walk along all of these mountains, you can move across them, and prompts even come up from time to time to vault over specific pieces. One of my guesses that I think is a possibility is that these chunks have been cut out from the playable area, and so they contain all the same nav meshing data, they've just been thrown around below you. Now, getting into the part of the video I think people are most interested in, let's go explore all those giant rocks in the skies, with the buildings that are far out. Some of these are massive superstructures, and everything that's just scattered around that you would normally have no access to see up close and personal. Now, for the sake of testing this, I do want to say that when I get to each area, I'm gonna test as many things, such as the nav meshing data that we've already seen in other areas. I want to see if there's any secret Easter eggs, or anything just hidden around that you normally wouldn't find, because I was almost certain before going up there that there was going to be all sorts of goodies, and god did we find some good things. Now, as you can see, some of the areas here are not nav meshed. I was trying to check the island itself, the buildings, different areas, and a few of these islands just don't have any nav meshing in any capacity in any place. You just go through them at every single point and no other interactions exist. The only cool part about it is just kind of going up there and seeing it all up close, getting to see what all these areas look like from a perspective you'd normally never have access to. And I sure hope you guys who are watching are actually enjoying seeing some of these scenes as well, because it is kind of crazy to just go up and fly to all these mountains and just kind of see what's going on. Now, I found some recurring textures that are used throughout a lot of the buildings on many of the different islands. Some of these are lower resolution copies of textures used in the main environment and player zone, such as the Union Dollar Store, and also there's another one which is Crimson Market. However, there are some with Japanese references, graffiti areas, and other things, and I actually assume these might be real photos that have been downscaled heavily. It's also very interesting that some of the buildings on these rocks are nav meshed unlike the other ones. I was surprised to find this out, but aren't we lucky that I am persistent and tested with every single one. I would actually like to hear from one of the developers as to why they decided to nav mesh some of these, or are these just kind of low resolution buildings that are actually in the main game somewhere, and could you guys point that out? If so, I'd actually appreciate it. After getting really far away from the playable area, I got my sniper scope out and started zooming back towards it. And as you can see, a lot of the stuff over there isn't rendering. The main island itself isn't even rendering. And because of this, we can see some very interesting things, such as these tunnels. And these tunnels, if you are wondering, are what you access when you go around the right side of the church and go below into the bunker and go into the armory. And this is the armory. This is what you're seeing right here. So that section of the map is just below the main map, and this gives us a better insight into how the game engine handles all of this. But on the topic of the tunnels and the marrow, I'm going to go into that topic in more depth later on, because there's something that's quite interesting going on behind the scenes in the engine, and I want to show that to you guys specifically. I want to point out right here that even though I'm so far away from the playable area that it's not even rendering the main island anymore, the developers decided they needed to put a high resolution model car, at least for this distance, as well as a high model house. Now, I know these aren't the best models, but compare them to the ground below, and again the main island isn't even rendering. It's just a little bit questionable as to why these assets are placed here. But it's interesting nonetheless to see all of this stuff up close with the no clip activated. I have a hypothesis that this little town here has quite a depressing story to actually tell. When navigating through the town, you'll notice that a huge pile of something seems to be accumulating in several spots. Now it's a very blurry texture, and of course it's meant to be seen from very far away, so I assume that this is actually a pile of dead bodies. Now the reason I believe this is we all know Stefano used dead bodies. He would merge them together to create the Guardians, and I believe that this is showing that in other parts of Union he was also collecting them, albeit in much larger amounts, and there must have been a lot of Guardians roaming around. This was his plan to basically control the entirety of Union and crush any kind of rebellion or resistance against him. Now I went really far out to give you guys that kind of cinematic aesthetic of the entire world of STEM seen from far away. However, I noticed I'd actually reached the edge of the skybox, and this is something I was actually going to investigate later myself, but it seems like I stumbled upon it accidentally. And as you can see here guys, we can see the edge of the skybox, all of the blackness, and it just really looks beautiful. This entire skybox, by the way, is animated, and you can see that up close really well. And I really do love the skybox that the Evil Within 2 used. It's just a perfect color blend to give off the right atmosphere of hopelessness, which is perfect for a horror game, but it also has this kind of beautiful aesthetic about it that just really mesmerizes you. Now this town right here is probably one of the most interesting out of all of the towns and islands floating in the sky, and I'm going to show you why that is in a second, but I just want to say that I can't believe I found this, and it took a long time to come across this specifically. I apologize for the no clipping mess here, but it looks like we found where they hid the office for Sebastian, and it's up in one of the floating rocks, far away underneath the town. It's almost like an Umbrella laboratory hidden underneath there. I decided to go visit Tatiana and see what would happen, and she threw me a party. Yeah, I wasn't joking guys. Hooray for finding the secret island Easter egg, Avid. Remember earlier we said we're gonna go back to the armory and visit that topic once again. So now we're gonna go into the actual armory because there's something I wanted to show you guys, like I said, that's interesting to how the change in the environment occurs. Now for all intents and purposes, I do just want to say there's nothing actually cool about the armory itself or the outside of it. It's when you traverse far away, you can start to see other buildings load up. And of course, when you get closer to it, you can see this is the normal player area that you would traverse around. However, this is in like another state of limbo where it's not properly rendered. But it's not the same render from the start of the video before the cutscene. This is a different environment altogether, with a different level of quality for different areas, and some of the objects and lighting are just completely missing from where they would usually be. None of the enemies were spawning in the area either, and it really gave me the impression I'd just found Purgatory. Hades, are you around here once again? For the sake of investigation, I couldn't activate any of the objects that you would normally need to progress the main story in this limbo area. I tried both activating the communicator, I tried looking for the areas themselves manually, and nothing seemed to proc anything specifically. Considering this area is far above the marrow and there'd be no way to see it, it's just interesting that the entire environment is rendered and loaded in a different state than it normally would be. Anyway guys, I hope you've enjoyed this episode and exploring the first segment of Union with me. I'm looking forward to covering each and every chapter and all of the differences, and maybe some secret Easter eggs that might have been placed within the chapters by the developers themselves, far away from normal prying eyes. If you did enjoy the video, please leave a like and a subscribe, or even just a comment, which I'd appreciate the most, so I know what you guys thought about the video and what parts you like the most. Also, if you want to, you could share the video out there guys. Go show this entire series to your grandma actually. That'd be absolutely great. I just hope you're having a beautiful day as always. Take it easy and peace.